Have no fear, Satoru Gojo. While you may have fallen to the King of Curses, this battle is far from over. What's up guys, Elephants here, and here we are to do a breakdown / discussion on the battle between Ryomen Sukuna and Satoru Gojo, the strongest in history versus the strongest of today, never actually ended and has still been raging on for quite a long, and I mean long time now. Like legit, we started this battle a year ago. Y'all, it's been a whole year, like golly gee willikers. But we have so much to talk about. And oh, so precious little time. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Heading me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, let me not confuse you. Satoru Gojo fell a long time ago now. Both in, well, not really in the universe. It's probably been like 30 minutes since Gojo fell. But like, in universe and out of universe, Satoru Gojo is gone. Even with someone puppeteering his body like the flesh mecha suit it is, ultimately, Satoru Gojo fell in chapter 236 all the way back in September. That man has been gone for a minute now. There ain't really no Gojo left here. The man waved goodbye, he gone. However, ultimately, in spite of his very clear, very absolute, very definitive, I actually don't think the battle between Gojo and Sukuna is over. At least in terms of the ideological battle and what the two actually are fighting for. And not in the sense of what they're fighting for, like, physically. Because once again, need I remind you, Satoru Gojo was in half, is currently in an airport, / maybe on a plane according to like a stream, and then possibly having his body being puppeteered, well not possibly, his body's being puppeteered around right now. But with that being the case, Satoru Gojo and Ryomen Sukuna isn't just the physical battle. In fact, it was kind of never just a physical battle. There's a reason why it was the battle of the strongest in history versus the strongest of today. Ultimately, just as much as it was a physical battle between the King of Curses and the God of the World, it truly is an ideological battle. A battle between Gojo and Sukuna. And that's pretty clear from as early as the battle was established long ago. Now, of course, there is immediate setup to this. Like I said, all the way back in chapter 3, we learn of Sukuna's ideology, his philosophy, and his regards in terms to the hierarchy of power, how a world should function, everything like that. Way back when, we get this line from Sukuna while still in the body of Yuji Todori. A hierarchy not based purely on strength is boring, if you ask me. Oh, sorry, Sensei. He comes out sometimes. What an interesting body you have now. I owe you a debt, after all. Not again! When I take this kid's body and make it mine, you'll be the first one I slaughter. Me, a target of the great Sukuna. What an honor. So, ultimately, this is Sukuna laying out his philosophy. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a later chapter, chapter 248, that argues that Sukuna never had a philosophy, but clearly, this is what he believes in. He believes in the absolutism of one, themselves, their power, and everything. Meaning, Ryomen Sukuna believes, hey, you know, the strongest should be the strongest, and the strongest should rule. Even if ruling is doing whatever they want. And Ryomen Sukuna, from what little we've gotten of the Heian period, was literally just Ryomen Sukuna doing whatever he wanted, because he was the strongest and no one could contest him. Sure, people tried, but as Gojo clearly lays out here, maybe they should have tried in the first place. They all fell to Ryomen Sukuna. They all attempted to sharpen themselves against him, and they were failed by his blades. But, luckily enough, while Sukuna's ideology is entirely based on he, himself, being the pinnacle of the verse and all that, Gojo Satoru's ideals, Gojo Satoru's dream, as it was called, ultimately isn't fully reliant on him. In fact, ironically enough, it's quite the opposite. Remember, one of Gojo Satoru's deepest dreams was to finally be reached, finally be understood, finally no longer just be a flower that could be observed and called beautiful and powerful and strong, something to be admired. No, he wanted to be a person who was viewed as a person with other people, more than a weapon, more than a beast, more than a monster. Ultimately, he couldn't be given that because everyone was so far beneath him, even the second to him could never compare, but ultimately that still was his dream. But even more specific, there's the idea that Sukuna himself admits that stands in almost direct contrast, yet still similarly aligns to a degree with Satoru Gojo. The idea that ultimately, as we see in the Yorozu fight back in 217, let's just quote Yorozu directly and get the full context of this. I want to be the one who slaughters you. I want you to be the one who slaughters me. If you're alive after I win, what will you give me? Everything. If I lose, that would mean I'm dead. It doesn't matter what you do with a corpse. Sukuna understands that ultimately when he falls, everything falls. If he loses, everything is lost. When he fails, that's it. His whole ideology, his dream, anything that he stood for perishes then because he is all that he stood for. He is the apex, and if the apex is no longer the apex, then there's no point. But, once again, in direct contrast to this, but in alignment with it, which is why I can see the counterpoint to the idea that, well, maybe Gojo did believe in a similar philosophy to Sukuna, is what's laid out here in 261. The idea that Gojo's like, whatever, I don't really plan to lose. But who cares what happens to your body after you die? So, clearly, he's a little bit unto himself, but remember, Gojo, while he does believe in himself here, and believed in himself through a majority of the battle, with 236 acting as somewhat of a counterpoint to that, but still, it's established well before this that Gojo is different. Gojo has a dream. Gojo has a dream that has yet to be reached, but he desires to make a reality. Ultimately, Gojo long ago, back in chapter 18, admits something. Ultimately, he admits that things are going to get crazy. Things are evolving. The wave of power that you guys have been ignoring to maintain your status in the name of stupid traditions has gotten huge and ever approaching. The new generation won't be limited to special grade. If you think I'm going to be the only one who's going to question your authority, you're going to be in for a world of hurt, old man. Once again, Gojo believes in the future. He believes in progress. He believes in development. He ultimately really believes that his power exists for two things. One, to guard the innocent and the weak and those who he can. And two, to raise the next generation. 18 is where he brings it up to fold with not Principal Yaga, but Gaku Ganji at the time, who is initially contrasting him. But we actually see this philosophy laid out much, much sooner. Much, much earlier. The chapter, if you go all the way back to chapter 11, is in fact called what Gojo's ideology ultimately is. Chapter 11, a dream. Gojo wants one thing above all others. As he says to Ichichi, and as he lays out pretty early on in the series, 11 chapters compared to 261, we've come a long way, ladies and gentlemen, is this. A dream? Yep. As they made clear with Yuji, the higher-ups are the scum of the Jujutsu world. Selfish idiots, bloodline idiots, proud idiots, just plain idiots. I'm gonna reset this Jujutsu world. It'd be easy to slaughter everyone who's in charge. But someone else would just take their place. Nothing would change. And it's not as if people approve of massacres anyway. So that's why I'm turning to education. I need strong and intelligent allies. I need to foster them. To that end, I'll sometimes assign my mission to them. Tough love. You sure you weren't just lazy? They're all great, especially the third year Hikari and the second year Akotsu. They'll be as good as me someday. Yuji was no exception. Once again, Gojo is a man focused on the future. Gojo is a man whose dream, whose ideology, whose fight exists beyond him and his flesh. It's honestly a pretty human idea. Obviously, the way we humans exist is a continuation of knowledge, or at least how we exist now. We didn't invent fire, or electricity, or anything of that sort. No, the progress of humanity is what leads to the humanity of today. It's what allows me to communicate with you as I am. It's what allows us to interact and divulge and connect as we do. Gojo is a person who believes in that future, believes in that connection, and ultimately believes that, yes, while he is currently the strongest, there are going to be others who will reach him. If he believes that he can use his power to help others, to nurture them, to grow them, to turn them into the strong and intelligent allies that he can, he will. And that stands in direct opposition to Sukuna. Belief in others and the future versus the belief in oneself and the past. It's why I've sort of talked about Sukuna before as an embodiment of everything that's wrong with the Jujutsu society. Overwhelming power, ancient, instant, really, more than ancient, like 1,000 years past, prime ancient history, overall judgment and bias and everything in solitude. consolidation of power. Sukuna represents all that, just as Gojo represents the culmination of the future, and his beliefs represent the culmination and the strength that could exist in that future. And that's ultimately why I think the battle hasn't ended yet. While Gojo's fallen, he's managed to actually succeed in a certain degree. He wore Sukuna down. He led the way. Over that month period, based on what we've seen and what we haven't seen, he's fostered, he's nurtured, he's given birth to powerful allies that can now stand against the King of Curses. That battle is what leads to, everything is what leads to the current scenario now, where his body is being piloted as a weapon against the King of Curses. Ultimately, this would not happen without Satoru Gojo. Yuji Todori would not have happened without Satoru Gojo. Todo Aoi would not have happened without Satoru Gojo. Only and all the reasons that the King of Curses is still struggling right now. We're in 261 now versus 236. Over 20 chapters. The King of Curses is still fighting for his life. Admittedly, not too seriously, but still fighting for his life is because of what Satoru Gojo has managed to do. What Satoru Gojo has managed to inspire. What Satoru Gojo has managed to raise and save and foster and grow. Thusly, the battle hasn't ended yet. And you can even see Gege writes this underlying current of the battle being never ending between he who believed in the future versus he who believes in oneself in the past, based on who's done the most in this big, bad, juicy battle against Ryomen Sukuna. Who has torn into the hierarchy? Who has torn into the ancient, unshakable, and solitary power of the King of Curses? It wasn't just Satoru Gojo who broke Sukuna down to the point where he was forced to incarnate. It wasn't even just that matters the most. A lot of the biggest major contributors to the state of the current narrative right now, where the main threat is Sukuna, and at least for now, unless some hopium copium comes about, isn't Big Jaku, isn't the merger, even though the merger is still on the horizon, don't get me wrong, it's still there, but right now it's Sukuna. It's because Satoru Gojo raised Yuta Kotsu and filled him with the determination and skill and understanding that would allow him to remove Kenjaku from the narrative. Same thing with what we now know is Todo Aoi also being there, being able to contribute to the defeat of Big Jaku, a sorcerer of 1,000 years past, another symbol of ancient power and knowledge that holds back and restricts and attempts to threaten the modern world. And once again, just leaving purely to Sukuna and his associates. Ume. Sure, we've been giving a lot of flack to this man right here. Hikari Kenji, unless you're one of the, I'm not going to say 5, there are many Hikari fans out there, unless you're one of the many Hikari fans out there who's had absolutely no issue with the man barely showing up, that man has been getting slandered, horrifically, atrociously, deviously. That man has been getting slandered from all sides of the community. I swear, I've seen people who never even talk about JJK come in and slander Hikari, but realistically, the reason a lot of the cast is still alive is because of Hikari Kenji, someone who was raised and respected and elevated by Satoru Gojo, and them being the one to hold back Ume, who sure is just the chef of the king, but the chef of the king could also one-shot a majority of the cast that's been fighting Sukuna so far. Violently one-shot. Look at how they do Hikari. If he wasn't immortal, that man would not be making it right now. But with that being the case, he's managed to do that because Gojo believed in the future, and because Gojo raised him to ultimately be better, be stronger, be greater. And that continues onto the king himself. Look at this masterclass that Yuta Kotsu, before leaping bodies, put onto Sukuna. Tearing out mouths, eating dismantles, tearing off arms. And that man went crazy. He even smacked him in the face with a Jacob Ladder. Went absolutely buku bonkers. Why? Because Satoru Gojo saved Yuta Kotsu. Because Satoru Gojo raised Yuta Kotsu. Because Satoru Gojo allowed Yuta Kotsu to become something greater. Become something better. Because he believed in the future. He believed in that potential. And that potential is shining through. Of course, once again, the battle's not going to be an easy one. Just like the battle between Gojo and Sukuna was not an easy one. Yuta Kotsu was ultimately defeated. He was sliced in half and had to resort to a little bit of a body hopping. But with that being the case, he still put up a good fight based on all that he could, based on all that was offered to him by Satoru Gojo. Look at Yuji Itadori, our main character, striking back against the king, landing not one, apparently that's a Sukuna Black Flash, but not one, but literally upwards of 8 Black Flashes as of the current narrative. Why? Because Satoru Gojo had faith in Yuji Itadori. Because Satoru Gojo helped foster Yuji Itadori's control of cursed energy, his understanding, everything. That hope and focus on the future is still there. And it shines through in the boy with the unbreakable will who's going to keep striking back against the king in every single way that he can, through pain and agony and destruction and despair, Yuji Itadori will not stop. The future will not stop roaring and raging against the past. And it once again continues, to the point where we see characters upon characters throw themselves against Ryoma and Sukuna, yet in the end, the most effective are those who he believed in, those who he decided to raise, those who he decided to nurture. Don't get me wrong, Maki Zenin puts in a mixed performance. She manages to do extreme damage when she sneaks him. But still, the reason Ryoma Sukuna is missing his heart, and the reason Ryoma Sukuna is going on to miss one of his arms, admittedly not both of them, is because of Maki Zenin and the Soul Split Katana. And all of that comes from Satoru Gojo believing in Maki Zenin, which is what the ancient hierarchy, which is what Ryoma Sukuna, which is what many others did not believe in. Many others did not believe in the potential of Yuji Itadori or Yuta Okkotsu. Everyone from the past, everyone such as Sukuna, did not believe in their power, in their potency, did not believe in that dream that the future generation could overcome the past and become stronger and not simply perpetuate that cycle. And ultimately, look who's been the least effective against Ryoma Sukuna. I love him. He's fantastic. Kashimo Hajime. Another relic of the past. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't do awful, but doesn't even really damage this Sukuna. He gets red, blocked, body bagged, because he's an ancient part of the past. He's still technically just an extension of Sukuna, an extension of Kenjaku, an extension of Urume. He was an obstacle to be overcome. But he was the least effective out of Yuji, out of Urume. Well, not out of Urume, but Yuji, out of Akari, out of Maki, out of Yuta. He was the least effective against the king, because in a way he represented all the king stood for. The belief in oneself, one's overwhelming power, and their overwhelming ability. Since he followed a similar path to the king, he ultimately fell to the one who was further along that path. But Maki Zenin is still alive. Yuta Okkotsu, in a roundabout way, is still alive. Itadori Yuji is most certainly still alive, so is Todo Aoi. The main people who have fallen are those who are in one way or another ancient, one way or another a victim of a previous system, such as Higurumi Hiromi, who did decent, but once again, outside of taking away Kamutoke, didn't really do much to the king. In fact, ironically enough, Sukuna does more damage to himself, rather than Higuruma doing damage to him, just because he felt like it. Because once again, Higuruma, in one way, shape, or form, is a relic of a previous system, even as the judicial system, which is fundamentally different from the Jujutsu system. But still, all this in culmination is truly the dream of one man. A dream of one man who saved many and gave rise to people like Yuji Itadori, gave rise to people like Akari Kinji, gave rise to people like Maki Zenin, and gave rise to people like Yuta Okkotsu. So ultimately, in spite of the battle having ended oh so long ago, the dream of one man still lives on. Those who will question the authority of the past still lives on. Those who were raised by a man who believed in the future are currently striking back against the past. And they're putting the King of Curses, whether it be of his own free will or not, in a whole world of hurt. So don't worry, for every Gojo fan out there. While your man has fallen and has been reduced to no more than a mecha, a beast, something to be controlled as a weapon against the King of Curses, see it like this. Gojo himself may have fallen, but his dream lives on. And hey, once Ryoma Sukuna loses, no matter how many fall to get there, Gojo will have won. Because it would be the future overcoming the past, and not the past getting to live on and propagate and prosper. So be happy, and let him go, because his dream will live on. But, of course, that's what I think. Please, what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think I'm completely wrong about the ideological battle between Gojo and Sukuna not being over yet? Do you think that ultimately Gojo losing the physical battle kind of overrides any victory in the ideological or mental or whatever battle that goes on beyond that? Do you guys have any other extra interpretations you'd like to add to this? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. D-dubs, if you somehow made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave eternal dream. Yes, eternal dream, as in eternal, like the word eternal, and then dream. In the comment section down below. Thank you. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any support at all. It is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Sukuna Plays, Greyhound, Kids Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, King Sukuna, NMA, Real Rare, Paris Arnold, G Prosper, and Red Wolf 4765. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 patrons: Autumn Mornings Lazo and Fine. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members: Robbie Uchiha and Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $10 patrons: Panda Goat, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Joaquin Munoz, along with Idemokami. And I'd like to give a final gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.